To embarrass me, my former husband had the audacity to invite me to his wedding. But when I showed up, his confident grin turned to stone. Hello everyone, join me as I share how my ex's plan to humiliate me on his big day with his mistress backfired spectacularly, all because I walked through those doors. Before diving in, please don't forget to hit that subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and share it with those you care about. I'd also love to know where you're tuning in from. Your support truly means everything. Now, here's my story. My name is Claire Morgan, and I'm 34 years old. If you'd met me 2 years ago, you wouldn't believe I'm the same person you see now. Back then, I was a shell of myself, left hollow by betrayal, holding on to the scraps of a marriage I thought would endure forever. Daniel Harris, my husband for 6 years, decided one bright spring afternoon that he had found someone better. Her name was Jessica Reed, 10 years younger, fresh-faced, and eager to step into my shoes. The day he left, he didn't even bother to soften the blow. "Claire, you've changed. I need someone who keeps life exciting," he said, leaning against the kitchen counter like we were discussing the weather. I stood there with a coffee cup in my hand, frozen, trying to comprehend how a man could dismantle years of love with such careless words. The shame didn't end when he walked away. Even though we lived in a polished neighborhood outside Boston, gossip traveled fast. Friends we once dined with stopped calling. Acquaintances gave me pitying smiles at the grocery store. I loathed their sympathy almost as much as I despised Daniel's smugness. Jessica moved in almost immediately, flaunting the jewelry I had picked for anniversaries and posting perfectly staged Instagram photos at my favorite vacation spots. There's nothing quite as gut-wrenching as watching someone else live the life you built. It stung, and I let it sting, because pain, if used right, can become fuel. The first few weeks after the divorce were agony. I woke each day with the feeling that my chest might cave in. I stopped wearing makeup. I ignored calls. I avoided mirrors. Then one evening, my best friend since college, Emily Carter, sat me down and said firmly, "Claire, this isn't your ending. This is your rebirth." She used that no-nonsense voice she always had when she was about to pull me back from the edge. That talk was the turning point. I began with small steps, returning to the gym, choosing food that nourished me instead of numbing me. I hired a trainer named Sophia, a woman who refused to accept excuses. At first, running a single mile felt impossible. Months later, I was clocking 5 miles with ease. My clothes fit differently. My posture straightened. One morning, I caught my reflection in a shop window and realized, slowly but surely, I was coming back. The changes weren't just physical. Inside, I was building something stronger. I finally enrolled in an executive marketing course I'd put off for years. When I completed it, 2 renowned firms offered me positions, and I chose the one that allowed me to travel. My passport began to fill: Italy, Greece, France, and with each trip, I found pieces of myself Daniel had worn down. It was in Milan, of all places, that I met Alexander Bennett. Alex was tall, impeccably dressed, the kind of man whose presence commanded attention without effort. He was speaking at a tech conference, and I was there on a work assignment. We ended up seated next to each other at dinner, and conversation flowed without pause. Unlike Daniel, Alex truly listened. By the end of the night, he asked to see me again, and within a month, we were inseparable. Alex didn't just love me, he respected me. He noticed the smallest things: how I liked my coffee, how I tucked my hair behind my ear when I was deep in thought. He didn't shy away from my emotional scars. With him, I wasn't rebuilding to prove myself. I was simply living. Still, every now and then, I thought about Daniel and Jessica, not with longing, but with detached curiosity. Last I'd heard, they were in a downtown loft, attending charity galas and posting their curated lives online. From the outside, it was flawless. But I knew Daniel too well, he was likely still chasing whatever came next, never satisfied with what he had. One crisp autumn afternoon, about 18 months after the divorce, I passed a boutique and saw a gown in the window. Midnight blue, floor-length, sequin just enough to catch the light. I tried it on and felt a quiet sense of power settle over me. I didn't know why I bought it at the time, only that one day, it would have its moment. I had transformed from a woman who could barely face the world into someone who could walk into any room with confidence. People who had once whispered about my supposed downfall now wanted my secret. It wasn't complicated, I refused to stay broken, I invested in myself, and I never forgot the man who assumed I'd crumble. For nearly 2 years, I didn't see Daniel. His absence didn't matter, my life was full. My career thrived. Alex and I were talking about the future. But life has a way of circling back when you least expect it. Sometimes it even hands you the perfect stage. That stage arrived in the form of an envelope, with handwriting I knew all too well. The envelope landed on my desk one Thursday morning, wedged between work reports and a package I'd ordered from Paris. I almost shoved it aside without looking, until the handwriting caught my attention. Daniel's, slightly slanted, his habit of writing recipient names in all caps. My first thought. He wanted something. My second. I didn't care. Still, curiosity has a way of prying you open. I slid my finger under the flap and pulled out a heavy cream card edged in gold. You are cordially invited to celebrate the wedding of Daniel Harris and Jessica Reed. The date was 2 months away. The venue, a vineyard estate just beyond Cape Cod. I stared at the print, half expecting the words to rearrange into something more logical. At the bottom, in Daniel's unmistakable hand, was a note, "Thought you might want to see how it's done, right?" My jaw tightened. This wasn't an olive branch, it was a stage production meant to put me in the role of humiliated ex. He wanted me there to see his version of a happy ending, with a front row seat to my own replacement. I left the card on the counter for a long time. A part of me wanted to toss it straight in the trash, denying him the satisfaction. But another part, the one that had clawed her way back, felt something cooler, sharper. It wasn't anger. It was amusement. That evening, Alex came over. I was curled on the sofa, the invitation sitting on the coffee table like it was daring me to act. He spotted it instantly. "Who's tying the knot?" he asked, loosening his tie. "Daniel and Jessica," I answered, watching for his reaction. He picked it up, read the smug little note, and raised a brow. "And he sent this to you?" "Oh, he sent it with purpose," I said. "This isn't reconciliation. It's theater." Alex studied me for a beat, then smiled slowly. "Then let's make sure the audience gets more than they expected." That's one of the many things I love about Alex, he never fuels my ego carelessly, but when he sees a chance for me to stand tall, he's right there in the front row. We brainstormed for an hour. Should we go? Ignore it? Somewhere between sips of wine and watching the sunset out my window, a plan formed. We wouldn't just attend, we'd arrive. I pictured it instantly, stepping out of a car that made heads turn, wearing something that silenced a room. No dramatics, no confrontations, just a presence so undeniable it shifted the entire atmosphere. The following weekend, Alex booked us an appointment at a high-end tailor in New York. While he was measured for a sleek black tuxedo that made him look like he'd stepped out of a magazine spread, I drifted into the evening gown section. My fingers stilled on a dress that stole my breath, champagne silk, cinched at the waist, shimmering just enough to mimic water in the sun. The neckline was daring without being vulgar, the train long enough to glide. In the fitting room, I slipped it on and faced the mirror. The reflection wasn't an ex-wife. She was a woman writing her own story. When I stepped out, Alex's face said everything. "That's it," he murmured. We left the boutique with garment bags in hand, a quiet excitement between us. It wasn't about Daniel anymore, it was about walking into a place where I had once been defined by someone else and proving, wordlessly, that I had rewritten the role entirely. The weeks before the wedding passed normally, campaign meetings for a luxury brand, dinners with friends, weekend getaways with Alex. But occasionally, I'd glance at the date on my calendar and feel a flicker of anticipation. One afternoon, Emily caught me grinning at my phone. When I told her why, she laughed so hard she nearly spilled her coffee. "Oh, this is going to be delicious. Promise me you'll take pictures." "Promise nothing," I said. I wasn't doing this for keepsakes. I was doing it for that split second when Daniel would realize I wasn't the woman he left behind. 2 nights before the wedding, Alex took me to a rooftop restaurant. The city glowed beneath us, the air cool enough for me to wrap his jacket around my shoulders. "Nervous?" he asked. I shook my head. "Not at all. We'll walk in, make the point, and walk out." He reached across the table and clasped my hand. "Then that's what we'll do." On the morning of the wedding, sunlight spilled across the bed. My gown hung in its bag beside Alex's tuxedo. In a few hours, we'd walk into a scene Daniel believed he controlled, unaware we were about to flip the script entirely. The drive to Cape Cod felt cinematic, the kind of slow build where you know the best scene is just ahead. The sky was clear, the ocean glittered in the distance, and Alex steered the polished black RollsRoyce Phantom he'd arranged for the day. We didn't rush. The power was in arriving when we chose. Inside the car, there was a charged quiet. My gown's silk pooled in my lap, cool against my skin. Alex glanced over, brushing my hand lightly. "Ready?" I smiled. "More than ready." The vineyard estate unfolded like a postcard, rolling green fields, barns turned event spaces, valets in crisp uniforms. Even from afar, I could hear the hum of music and conversation. Daniel had spared no expense. As we rolled up to the entrance, a small group of guests stepped from a modest sedan. Their chatter faded when our car came to a smooth stop. One leaned toward another, whispering behind manicured fingers. I kept my eyes forward. The calm I felt wasn't a mask, it came from knowing I had already won, regardless of what happened next. A valet in a navy jacket stepped forward to open Alex's door. He stepped out smoothly, fastening his tuxedo jacket, then came around to my side. Through the tinted glass, I saw heads turning. Phones and cameras were already being raised. Inside, the reception was in full swing. Through the open doors, I caught pieces of conversation, Jessica's laugh, bright but slightly strained, Daniel's voice pitched too high as he greeted guests. They had no idea we were steps away. Alex extended his hand. I didn't take it immediately. For a moment, I just looked at him, tall, composed, the embodiment of quiet confidence. He wasn't just my partner in life, he understood exactly what this moment meant. I placed my hand in his and stepped out. Sunlight struck the gown, making it shimmer like molten gold. My hair, styled in loose waves, caught the breeze. I didn't need to look around to know we had everyone's attention. The air shifted. I felt it. We walked toward the entrance, our footsteps on the stone path almost louder than the music. My heels clicked with deliberate rhythm, Alex's arm warm against mine. Whispers had stopped, now people stared openly. Some smiled, clearly impressed. Others, I suspected, were already texting inside. At the doorway, a coordinator with a clipboard froze mid-sentence. "Welcome," she said, the word rising like a question. Alex gave a polite nod. "Thank you. We're here for Daniel Harris's wedding." Something flickered in her eyes, recognition, perhaps shock, before she quickly stepped aside. Inside, the room glowed with white flowers and soft lights. Tables circled a dance floor where Jessica was greeting guests. Her gown was undeniably beautiful, but her eyes darted toward the entrance the moment the murmurs began. Daniel was at the bar, laughing with a colleague. He turned, scanning the crowd, and when his gaze found us, his face changed. The laughter drained, his jaw stiffened. He blinked twice, as if hoping the image might alter if he looked again. I didn't rush or hesitate. Alex and I maintained our pace, the crowd's conversations fading into a hush. Each step was intentional, not dramatic, just steady, claiming the space as ours. At the edge of the dance floor, I glanced at Jessica. Her smile stayed, but her eyes sharpened. She turned slightly toward Daniel, brushing his arm in a subtle grounding gesture. Still, I caught the flicker of uncertainty in her expression. Alex leaned close enough for only me to hear. "They're already unraveling." I let the faintest smile form. "We're just beginning." The music swelled, as if the band sensed the tension. Guests shifted in their seats, angling for a better view. My heartbeat stayed steady. The calm before the storm wasn't about waiting for it, it was about being it. The crowd parted naturally as we reached the center of the room. It wasn't arrogance, it was presence. The chandeliers caught my gown, scattering gold across the floor. Every movement of the silk was fluid, deliberate. Daniel stood frozen, a forgotten glass in his hand. His gaze flicked to Alex, back to me. The look wasn't that of someone prepared for a casual meeting, it was someone blindsided. Alex broke the silence with the perfect balance of charm and volume. "Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Alexander Bennett, and this is my fiancée, Claire Morgan." The word fiancé landed like a champagne glass shattering. Heads turned, a few audible gasps slipped out, and somewhere in the back, someone whispered, "Claire Morgan," as in, before stopping short. Jessica's smile twitched, barely, but enough for me to catch. She glanced at Daniel, who still hadn't moved, his grip tightening on the glass. Alex continued with polite ease. "We're flying to Paris next week for our engagement party, but when we received Daniel's thoughtful invitation, we couldn't resist coming to wish them well in person." It was flawless civility, words no one could object to, yet carrying an undercurrent everyone felt. This wasn't just a visit, it was a statement. I stayed silent. My presence spoke louder than anything I could say. Every shimmer of my gown, every measured glance between Alex and me, told the story. Jessica stepped forward, her tone warm but brittle. "Claire, how wonderful to see you." I met her eyes. "Thank you. You look beautiful, Jessica." She hesitated, unsure if the compliment hit a barb. I let it hang and looked at the flowers beside us. Daniel set down his glass and stepped closer, wearing a polite smile that didn't reach his eyes. "Claire," he said, in a voice balancing surprise and control, "this is unexpected." "Life's full of surprises," I replied lightly. "Congratulations are in order, I hear." The room stilled. Somewhere, a fork clinked against a plate. Then conversations resumed, quieter now, laced with speculation that we stayed just long enough to ensure our presence was woven into the story people would retell for weeks. Alex ordered champagne, and we mingled with a few familiar faces. The longer we remained, the more Daniel's composure frayed, his glances quick, almost sharp, as if measuring my enjoyment and realizing I was completely at ease. At one point, I spotted Jessica speaking in hushed tones to a friend, her eyes flicking toward us. I didn't care what was being said. This wasn't about them anymore. This was about walking into a space designed to make me small and proving, wordlessly, that I no longer fit inside their frame. When Alex finished his champagne, he met my eyes with the unspoken question. I gave the faintest nod. We headed for the exit, unhurried, deliberate. Guests stepped aside again, the energy in the room shifting as we passed. At the doorway, Alex turned, offering a polite nod toward the couple. "We'll let you enjoy the rest of your day. Best wishes." Daniel's jaw flexed, but he managed a strained, "Thank you." Outside, the cool air embraced us. The Rolls-Royce waited, the driver holding the door. I glanced back through the wide windows. Daniel still stood where we'd left him, staring after us, Jessica at his side speaking quickly, her smile gone. I slid into the car, the door closing with a satisfying hush. Alex joined me, taking my hand as the driver pulled away. "You were extraordinary," he said. I exhaled, only then realizing I'd been holding my breath. No, we were. We hadn't been on the road 10 minutes when my phone buzzed. Alex and I exchanged a knowing look. I didn't need to check to know who it was. The first call went unanswered. Then a text appeared, "Claire, can we talk? Please." I almost laughed. Please. From the man who once told me I'd never find better. I let it sit unread. Alex brushed his thumb over my hand. "You owe him nothing," he said quietly. By the time we reached our penthouse, 2 more messages had arrived. "I shouldn't have invited you. That was a mistake." Followed by, "You didn't have to show up like that." Like that. I could practically hear his teeth grinding. He'd wanted me to sit quietly in the shadows. Instead, I'd walked in and rewritten his scene. Emily called an hour later, her voice bubbling with laughter. "You absolute legend. My cousin was there, she said you and Alex looked like movie stars. Word is Jessica's been crying in the bathroom for half an hour." I sighed, not out of guilt. "I didn't go to hurt anyone, Emily. I just needed to remind myself I'm not the woman they think I am." "Oh, you reminded them," she chuckled. Later, on the balcony with the city lights glittering, another message came through from Daniel. "Longer this time, I made a mistake letting you go. Seeing you today made me realize what I lost. If you still care." I didn't finish reading. I deleted it. His regret wasn't love, it was the loss of control. And I'd learned that control disguised as affection had no place in my life. Alex slipped an arm around me. "Paris next week?" he asked. "Paris," I confirmed. "And after that, wherever we want." I didn't need revenge or closure. I had already won the moment I walked into that room with someone who loved me for who I truly was. Some victories aren't loud. They're in a gown that glitters, a partner's proud smile, and the quiet certainty that you've outgrown the life you once clung to. Daniel would live with that image forever, the moment his wedding stopped being about him and became the day he realized he was just a chapter in my story. Life circles back in unexpected ways. Sometimes the people who think they've buried you are forced to watch you bloom. My takeaway: never waste energy proving your worth to someone who walked away. Invest it in becoming the best version of yourself. Success, self-respect, and real love speak louder than any revenge. So, if your ex invited you to their wedding, what would you do? Ignore it, cause a scene, or arrive as their worst, what if, come to life? Tell me in the comments, and remember to like, subscribe, and share, because somewhere, a Daniel is planning a wedding, and a Claire is planning her entrance. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned for the next story. Bye.